Have you been in love before? Or are you in love right now? How do you tell them the deepest feelings you have for them? Are words enough to express it to them? In this session, we will talk about love. Consider this a training on how to say I love you the English major way. Are you ready? But first, a pleasant day to you, Dr. Rilieta, and to my classmates. I am Orlando P. Vinculado Jr., a PhD ELT student taking ELT 334 Stylistics. In fulfillment to the requirements of the course, I was assigned to do an analysis of a masterpiece by no other than E. Cummings. I am so blessed to have been assigned to this literary wonder as I was captivated myself as to how words and style transcend human experiences. Indeed, most of the deepest feelings in this world are accessed through literature. Having said this, I am so excited to share to you a stylistic analysis of the poem entitled Somewhere I Have Never Traveled Gladly Beyond. In this session, let me guide you to some background of our poet. I will also give you a personal encounter of a poem through a poem reading activity. Then, we will dive into the lines and all the other hidden gems of the poem and eventually lead us to its appreciation. I hope you are on board with me in this stylistic analysis. To start, allow me to introduce the poet we are celebrating today. He is Edward Estlin Cummings. He was an American poet as well as a painter, essayist, author, and playwright. Being one of the most innovative poets of his time, his body of work included 2,900 poems, 4 plays, and several essays, as well as numerous drawings and paintings. Cummings is well known for creating poetry using his own personal style by experimenting with poetic forms and languages, as well as revising grammatical rules to suit his own purposes. He is also remembered for his attacks on conventional patterns of thought and criticisms on how society restricted free expression. This is inspired by modernist art movement like Surrealism and Cubism, which sought to reimagine art and break out of the traditional rules of painting. Cummings began writing poetry that similarly bent and broke accepted literary and poetic rules and structures. He experimented with punctuation, spacing, capitalization, and syntax. Fun fact: Cummings' name is often written as E. Cummings, all in lowercase letters. It is a mistaken belief that he changed his name officially to lowercase letters. Cummings used to capitalize words in his verse only to add meaning to it. His poems are usually in lowercase, with capitals only used sparingly. Cummings didn't object when his publisher started lowercasing his name, which has led to this practice being used by others. He himself capitalized his name in his signature and in the title pages of original editions of his books. Somewhere I have never traveled gladly beyond. E. Cummings. Somewhere I have never traveled gladly beyond any experience. Your eyes have their silence. In your most frail gesture are things which enclose me, or which I cannot touch because they are too near. Your slightest look easily will unclose me, though I have closed myself as fingers. You open always petal by petal, myself as spring opens, touching skillfully, mysteriously, her first rose. Or, if your wish be to close me, I and my life will shut very beautifully, suddenly, as when the heart of this flower imagines the snow carefully, everywhere descending. Nothing which we are to perceive in this world equals the power of your intense fragility, whose texture compels me with the color of its countries, rendering death and forever with each breathing. I do not know what it is about you that closes and opens. Only something in me understands the voice of your eyes is deeper than all roses. Nobody, not even the rain, has such small hands. So that was the poem, everyone. Beautiful, isn't it? This time, I am encouraging you to read the poem once more. Alright, thank you so much, everyone. This time, we will proceed to the most important part of this session, which is the analysis of the poem. We will start with the title. Just a little interesting fact before we proceed. As with the other poems of E. E. Cummings, he did not give this poem an actual title. For purposes of identification, editors simply refer to each of Cummings' poems by its first line. Alright? So, let's now proceed to the title. You will see there, the words somewhere and traveled imply that the speaker is about to tell the reader about a journey that he has taken or will take. This journey is perhaps a happy one, as the word gladly indicates, although the reader does not know at this point the destination of this journey. In the end of the first line and the beginning of the second line, the poet clarifies that this journey is beyond any experience that he has ever had. This time, let us talk about the first stanza. So you will see in the first line, the author used a personal pronoun I, which signifies that he talks about his personal experience. Upon checking his biography, this poem may be written for his second wife, Annie Barton. He's explaining his feelings towards her, and of course, the power that she has over him. Okay? The word beyond, you will see there, beyond, it may suggest that Barton is way better compared to the previous wife or the previous lover of the author. You will also see here a paradox. Okay? Of course, when we say a paradox, it is self-contradictory statement but may prove to be well-founded or true. Okay? So, never traveled gladly. Okay? For the first stanza, never traveled gladly suggests that he is happy to experience something that he has not experienced before. That's why it is a paradox. In the second line, your indicates that the speaker is talking to another person. Okay? Of course, for some reason, has silent eyes based on the line. And then the line, your eyes have their silence, is actually a personification or the attribution of a personal nature or human characteristic to something non-human. Eyes, of course, could not speak, but it is silent. Eyes, okay? So the eyes here could also mean or popularly known as the windows of the soul. That's why we could also say that the author or the poet expects to learn more about her lover. Okay? So there is also a synesthesia, which is blending of human senses. So what are those that are blended? The eyes, of course, vision, and the silence, which is hearing. So, in addition, readers can also determine that the poet is discussing metaphysical concepts, abstract ideas that cannot be experienced by one's physical senses. In the real world, eyes do not have the capability of producing noise, right? So, they are by default silent. The discussion of the person's eyes in this poem, along with the use of the word gladly, would give readers their first indication that this might be a love poem. Okay? So the colon, you will also see their colon. That is an indication that an explanation will immediately proceed. Alright. So in the explanation, Okay, it is found in the third line. You will see there the term frail gesture. This indicates that the person to whom the speaker is dedicating this poem is most likely a woman. Okay, please do note that in Cummings' time, frailty is a compliment. It is like a delicate movement. But despite these frailty gestures, there's power enough to enclose or captivate the male. Of course, the speaker. The feelings that are produced in the speaker by this woman's enchanting glance are so powerful that he feels enclosed by them. Moving forward, in the last line, we will once more observe a paradox. I cannot touch because they are too near. It seems a bit odd because things that are near us can be touched because it is reachable. It is near. This is now an indication that what the author is referring is not actually a thing that can be touched, but an emotion that is felt. Of course, that the speaker cannot use his sense of touch to try and comprehend. In addition, we can also realize that somewhere in the first line to which he is traveling is not about a literal physical journey. Rather, his journey is metaphysical, and the woman's eyes are the means by which the speaker makes this journey. In the first line of the second stanza, the word slightest seemed to be a consistent word to that of the frail in the first stanza, which still talks about the woman. We could also observe that there is a simile, or of course the comparison with the use of like or as. In the poem, you will see there, close myself as fingers, which could mean that he is tightly closed as regards love, perhaps because of his bad experiences or that he might have been badly hurt by someone before. Okay, so to continue, the speaker notes that the woman can easily unclose or open him, even though he has, up until that point, closed myself as fingers. Here, the speaker is talking about the power of love to change a person's perspective. The speaker's love for this woman has opened him up, and he is grasping in these new emotions. There is also a juxtaposition in lines 2 and 3 of the second stanza. Two ideas being seen or placed close together with contrasting effect is what juxtaposition is, right? So in the poem, we have closed and open. Okay. In addition, metaphor is also seen in the third line of this stanza. So in the poem, the speaker compares to a flower that is opening, which could mean his vulnerability, considering that usually flowers suggest femininity, as it is associated or symbolize women, right? Aside from this, a personification can also be observed because the speaker personifies the season of spring, and similarly because the woman is compared to spring. And we know that springs symbolize life and new beginnings. So this could mean that the woman has become the essential starting point of his life. This is justified in the poem when the speaker said petal by petal, because we know that spring is the time for flowers to bloom. We should also note that the parenthesis with the adverbs is a way of fine-tuning the line, and the capitalization of the word spring is a way of highlighting its significance as a symbol. Moving on to the third stanza, the speaker continues his discussion of the woman's power. The phrase, your wish, signifies the power of the woman over him. The speaker is in the woman's complete control to the point that she has power over his life and his death. Speaking of death, we will observe another paradox because dying is not usually referred to as beautiful. Death is associated with grief and sorrow, but in the poem, the speaker describes it as beautiful. He also equated his hypothetical death with the impending death of a flower, which from the line imagines the snow carefully everywhere descending. Also, while a flower is alive in the organic sense, it does not have the human quality of imagination, right? So this is a personification. Lastly, a simile can be seen. The speaker compares his closing of emotions to a flower that closes due to the cold. So we will really observe here the consistency of the use of seasons as symbols. First was the spring, which symbolizes his life. Now is the snow, which means his death. Also, by referring to death beautifully, the poem retains the positive mood that it established with the word gladly in the first stanza. In the first line of the fourth stanza, the speaker alludes to the metaphysical quality of the woman's power. Again, this woman's fragility or femininity is so powerful that it transcends the physical world. We can observe another paradox in line 2, which seems odd because usually there is no power in intense fragility. But of course, this suggests that the woman he loves is not physically strong, but his emotions for her are. Diba? So there is also a metaphor wherein fragility is compared to countries, which is vast, and it emphasizes the power of her beloved over him. The speaker examines the texture of his femininity, which he says compels, compels him with the color of its countries. A reader may at first be confused by the use of the word countries, right? So the speaker does not literally mean that the woman's intense femininity is composed of countries in a geographic sense, Rather, by referring to the woman in this way, the speaker makes the woman seem larger, larger than life, as if her feminine powers occupy a metaphysical world of their own. Lastly, we have a juxtaposition of death and forever. The juxtaposition may mean that her beloved has the power to make or unmake him. So here, the speaker builds on the idea of the previous stanza, underscoring the power that the woman has over his life and death. The first few things you will observe in the fifth stanza would perhaps be the brackets, right? So these brackets would suggest a separate thought, So there is also an imagery, opens and closes, which suggests that he bends or that he is flexible to her will, Synesthesia is also there, voice of your eyes, right? So which tells us that the eyes have the ability to speak. Going back to our definition to the eye, eyes are windows to the soul, and roses are symbols of femininity, right? This means that her soul is so beautiful that it is unparalleled, walang katulad. So next you will see there rain. Rain is personified as having hands, which suggests gentle and nurturing. The hands could also suggest that spring uses to open roses, diba? While this is an impressive natural power, the speaker says that his lover is even more impressive. So also previously in the poem, the speaker has equated his lover's power to the power that spring has to open a rose. Now, he is saying that his lover's power is even stronger than these natural seasonal powers. In one final potent image, the speaker underscores the idea that this woman's power is unmatched by anything in nature. From the lines, nobody, not even the rain, has such small hands. So that was the interpretation or stylistic analysis per stanza, okay, of the poem. This time we'll now proceed to the structure. We'll try to look closer to the structure of the poem. We'll first see their style. He is actually writing as if thoughts are spontaneously occurring to him. This could also justify his unusual spacing, periods, commas, and etc. Okay? His odd syntax is also an indication that grammar is not enough to really express that he feels for his lover. Thus, this is stream of consciousness. Talking about the form, we have 5 quatrains. Okay? It is arranged in free verse, and towards the end, we will observe an AB-AB rhyme scheme. This time, let's talk about the unconventional structure. In the poem, Cummings runs all of the words and comma together. In fact, he continues this throughout the poem anywhere there is a comma in the middle of the line. One may wonder at first, as some critics have, whether Cummings is doing this just to be individualistic. Yet, if one examines this odd use of punctuation in relations to Cummings' theme of love, it makes sense why he is running all of the words together. Cummings is so captivated of his beloved that he does not want to even take the customary pauses. Of course, those punctuation marks. Speaking of punctuation, he does not include any periods at any point in the poem. In fact, an enjambment was employed, which ushered a smooth flow of thoughts from the speaker. It is as if he wants to indicate grammatically the timeless quality of his love, which will never end. To continue, we have the themes of the poem: love, power, amazement, and man and natural world. First is love. Similar to many traditional love poems, the speaker spends a lot of time talking about his lover's eyes. He also used the symbol of a rose. Next is power. The poet highlights the inexplicable power of love and how his lover has total control over his emotions through, of course, as described in the poem, her mysterious grace. Next is amazement. His feelings connects him to something bigger than the both of them, and he marvels totally in amazement at the power that love has. Lastly, man and the natural world. References to flowers, rains, and seasons are symbols of how man and nature are and exist in harmony. Lastly, we have the tone and the mood of the poem. This poem combines bewilderment at love's mysterious power with a joyful acceptance of his love. The speaker's tone is one of admiration, awe, wonder, and reverence. He finds it amazing that the mere presence can overwhelm his senses, thoughts, and emotions. The expression in her eyes conveys the intensity of her love for him. The usual connection the speaker makes between the senses suggests that even without words, there is a communication and understanding between the lovers. There is the idea of love's being inexplicable, mysterious, and spiritual. There is no logic to explain why his beloved is able to exert absolute power over him, yet instinctively he is willing to accede to her. So that was the poem, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. After this, for sure we are able to have a grasp of the vastness of the feeling of love. Indeed, poems such as this justifies the immeasurable feeling we have for someone.